To Six Wins Wrestling weekly live stream. It's 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's Saturday. So that means we're here to give you the top 6 moments from this past week. I'm Chris.
I'm
here
Matt.
with Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And I'm talking over Matt. So we're here to give what we think are the top 6 moments. Matt, how was your week? Did you enjoy the WWE product this week?
Yeah, as always, I'm mostly able to get recaps and maybe see a few clips, and it's kind of mostly been focused on King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring stuff. But it was interesting to see the results and kind of wonder what's going to happen next, which we'll obviously dive into. And yesterday, so where I work, our building, our walls are being repainted yesterday, and some guy's phone had like "woo" as either like a ringtone or a text notification. So he apologized because it went off while I was on the phone. He was like, "Oh, sorry, that was Ric Flair." I was like, "No worries, man."
It's like, no, duh. Did you get into a wrestling conversation with them at all, or
no? Because actually, when I heard it, I was like on my phone on like headphones so that people don't have to hear the call, and it sounded like it sounded like someone was turning on a power drill, and I was like, "Well, I thought they were just painting." And then he was like, "Sorry about that." And he was like, "That was Ric Flair," and I was like, "Wait. Oh, did I hear a woo?" I thought it sounded like a power drill, but I think it's because I was muffled. But so instead of like, it was like woo. The human awesome. Power drill, Ric Flair.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's one of those ones that have kind of crossed into pop culture mainstream with the handful of wrestling things, the Hogan, the Ric Flair Woos.
We've talked about some of those catchphrases that you can say outside of wrestling. You can go watch that video on our channel. It's top 6 catchphrases and tell us the ones that we missed.
Yeah, top 6 catchphrases. That's a good one. I think out of our long form videos, that's our biggest one. People seem to really like that one.
People love catchphrases.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we hop right into it? Let's start with the very interesting turn of events with Queen of the Ring. At least interesting to me. Some of the matches that took place, I did not expect the winner to be the winner, and we saw some women go down and some women move on. And one thing that I learned, I believe they're doing, so the men's King of the Ring is down to 4 and the Queen of the Ring is down to 4. I think they're doing all of those matches in Saudi. I thought they would do just the finals. That's the way they made it seem on SmackDown.
Okay. They've switched things a lot, so it could be, but they could change it. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I think that'd be kind of fitting if memory serves in King of the Ring or Queen of the Ring tournaments in the past. At the actual premium live event, they've made it kind of a tournament, so you have to win one or two matches, 2 or 3 matches in the same night to be crowned. So that makes sense.
So that'd be very cool, honestly. I'm fine with them doing it either way, but I wonder if, depending on how many matches they have like set up and prepared for the event, they might go, we're a little bit like underbooked. We've got like Cody, Logan, I don't even know who else they have, so let's just do the semifinals and the finals, you know.
Well, I know they have a women's title match, Becky versus Liv, which we'll touch on in a minute, and then they have the triple threat for the IC title. They have Sammy versus Bronson Reed versus Chad Gable, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But
is Priest defending? I think they're pushing him and McIntyre, probably going to be Clash at the Castle, right? That's what it seems like. Probably not a match for him.
Yeah, I believe that's the direction they're heading. So we'll get into all that. I think now, if we're going chronologically, we can focus on the Queen of the Ring matches that occurred on Raw. We saw Io Sky facing off against Shayna Baszler, and we saw Lyra Valkyria face off against Zoe Stark. Now, I don't know if you feel the same way, Matt, but I don't see one of the women from Raw winning this thing. I do think it's going to be one of the ladies on SmackDown, but you never know.
I would mostly agree, but I want to go back, flashback to last week. At one point, Zelina Vega was booked to face Shayna Baszler, and we talked about, you know what? I actually see Zelina Vega upsetting Baszler, and maybe even like going to the finals because she's like this great underdog story. And I didn't realize, because I'm an idiot, that Zelina Vega is actually the current reigning Queen of the Ring.
Right.
She won back in 2021 or 2022, the year they brought it back. And she waved like that when she won. And so obviously she wouldn't have repeated. But that almost makes me wonder. I when I looked it up, I was like, wait, did she beat Nia Jax in the final? But she beat Doudrop. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's very similar to a smaller underdog going over a bigger, juggernaut, wrestler. And so because I think Nia Jax seems like the favorite, I'm a little bit like, will they pull the Io or Lyra upset and kind of have Nia be this like monster that like never gets it? And that could set her off at least for an angle for another month or two while she does target a title or feud with the Queen of the Ring winner. I'm not 100% convinced that Nia or Belair will win it, but if I had to put money, I'd say Nia. What do you think?
Well, you may have changed my mind because my original favorite pick going into this, well, I had two, and one was Tiffany Stratton, who will reveal what happened with her here in a moment, but the other one was Jade Cargill. Yeah. So now it's like, I don't think Bianca Belair needs it. She can lose to some sort of shenanigans. And, on that note, one thing I'll say about these tournaments is with all the people I thought couldn't take a loss, they're doing a lot more clean finishes than I thought they would. They've done a couple of DQs and interferences to keep people strong, but I've been very pleased with the fact that they've been doing a lot less shenanigans and faulty finishes than I thought they would, or at least that they used to. So,
right.
Yeah, but we did see Io Sky move on to the next round to face off against Lyra Valkyria of NXT, who I'm not I haven't watched a ton of NXT, so I don't know a ton about her, but maybe that's your dark horse right there, one of these two.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the one thing, and it will be clean, but it will be like the sort of not clean, because it sounded like from what I read and saw that like Belair in her matchup kind of like tweaked or like her like selling like a knee injury, and I think if Nia's gonna win and go on to the finals, they'll use that as like, oh, Nia targeted the knee, or Bianca like was tried to power through, but like this is what got her. So I feel like they did set that up so Nia could win and not damage Bianca too much, which they wouldn't. But that's why I think Nia is the surest of all four actually to go to the finals.
Yeah. And on that note, I thoroughly enjoyed both matches, to be honest. I thought the Bianca Belair and Tiffany Stratton match, whole lot of fun. These two can go. Tiffany Stratton was set up to do the prettiest moonsault, and Bianca caught her right into the KOD and hit her. Wow. But it was one of those matches where it was so back and forth, until the last second. I didn't know who was going to come out the victor, but I hated to see Tiffany take a loss because I'm a huge Tiff. It is Tiff time. I'm a huge fan. But they did say Tiffany Bianca Belair defeats a very game Tiffany Stratton. And whenever they say that the other person who lost was game, that means that, that
means that she's going to be Triple H.
Yes. Right. But I've noticed whether it's Cole or Corey Graves, whenever they're trying to make the person that lost like still seem like, a big deal, a very game so-and-so,
Yeah.
Jey Uso beats a very game.
I'm going to start listening for it more and wonder if it's only on like, I'm going to be like, is there a conspiracy theory that they only say this for like Triple H people that like he's a big fan of? He's a very game competitor. Oh yeah, they are. Triple H loves Ciampa.
Right. Yeah. He's
very game DIY.
They're always so game. So flipping it over to Jax versus Cargill, I am not totally sold on Jade Cargill just yet. It was a funny match, but my favorite part of the whole match is when Jade Cargill's like 4-year-old daughter was in the front row, and Nia Jax looked at her daughter and she said, "Your mom sucks." And they're like, Jesus, like you could tell that daughter all day, like, hey, this is fake. It's part of the show, but she's still got to take that to heart and be like, hey, does my mom really suck? It probably screwed her up for life. But they did, in what I said, they haven't had too many kind of wacky finishes. They did do the wacky finish where that fired Jade up so much that Nia went to grab a chair. Jade wrestled it away, hit her with it, and the ref was like,
"That's the match. Done? There it is.
You're
it's
done.
over."
Exactly. Yeah. And then she's like, "What did I do?" And so I think so. I had a weird comparison between Jade Cargill and LA Knight. And they're kind of opposites where LA Knight kind of scratched and clawed from the bottom and had to prove himself like while he was kind of a lower card, mid card guy and worked his way up. I feel like Jade Cargill kind of got thrust into this main event position where she hasn't really had to do that or really hasn't had the opportunity yet. So like, sure, she looks the part and they're all the entrance and the video packages and she's built like a tank, all that's there. But for me, she still seems like stiff in the ring, stiff when talking, and I don't know if pairing her with Bianca Belair is going to make her better. It might actually do the opposite and shine a spotlight on that she's not quite there yet.
That despite the presentation, we have superstars that have that close enough presentation, but are smoother in the ring, better talkers. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I love Jade Cargill's presentation. Like our other friend Matt, I'm wild when I see her on TV. I devolve into a caveman Neanderthal. But like, yeah, to your point, I feel like this gets into a pattern of a lot of wrestlers throughout the years and decades where like they have such a great presentation and they're a big deal and the company wants them to be a big deal. Like some of these like big massive dudes that came from like another country, Nathan Jones from Australia or whatever, and like random guys like that, and like they were billed as like this really cool powerhouse was going to be this next big heel or face, but they just didn't do anything with them. Like at the end of the day, like what you do in the ring does matter. And I think sometimes they forget that like Omos doesn't get over because he beats jobbers, and Jade Cargill isn't going to either. So they need to have her in competitive matches and like show off some skills, and we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. So that's their final four. You got Nia versus Bianca Belair, and then you have Io Sky versus Lyra Valkyria. Do you have a favorite with these four women?
I'm gonna stick with Nia, but I do like the possibility of a storyline that she almost gets over that hump again, winning a title, winning a tournament, and loses to another underdog superstar like she usually, loses to, and it kind of snaps her, at least allows her to like feud, get over that superstar, and then maybe move on to a title, quite honestly. So I could see an upset, but I'll go Nia.
Okay, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna go Nia. I think it's her time. I think nobody wanted a Nia Jax return, and now that we got it, we're all like, awesome job. She is doing great in the monster heel role, and can't say enough good things. I think she's been doing good.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, so one thing I know you wanted to chat about is Damian Priest. Is he kind of in a tween spot? Is he a heel? Is he a face? So what are your kind of thoughts on the way Damian Priest has been presented lately?
And yeah, the other question is like, who wears more leather between him and Drew McIntyre when they come out? Like, we only know if we like ask them like, are your socks and like underwear also leather? And I'm guessing the answer is yes for both of them. So it's a really tough call. But yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like Damian Priest, they're kind of giving him. Obviously, Drew McIntyre is one of the top heels right now, but he kind of falls into the cool heel role. So this seems to be a matchup that's going to happen at Clash at the Castle. McIntyre is going to sort of be in that cool heel role, but he's obviously going to be. I think he's going to get cheered in Scotland where they have this tournament or where they have that PLE. So I'm just very interested in like where they're going. I like Damian Priest as just kind of like tweener, maybe. I don't know what I want for him. I really like him. I think he can excel in either role. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you want him? I guess my only worry is if the Judgment Day breaks up, it will leave a little bit of a hole in the programming as a whole.
Yeah.
A hole in a hole. And also I think some superstars might lack direction for a bit. Like Dom and Balor, where do they go? And I don't really care about JD McDonough because his head's too big for his body. I do like he's funny, but like I'm wondering what you think about that too.
Yeah, well, Drew did say something, and I had this thought, like when Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre were having the promo in the ring, like as we're looking at right now, Drew said something interesting. He said, you know, when I was champion, it was a case of the man making the title. Now that you're champ, it's the case where the title's making the man. And I think there's some truth to that. So I'm like, does Damian Priest have what it takes to do promo battles against Drew McIntyre? Is he on that same level? And my answer is no, but also who is on the Drew McIntyre level right now? He's just on fire.
Yeah.
I do think Damian Priest could have a lengthier reign. So even if he does face Drew at Clash of the Castle, you could still have Punk interfere.
Yeah.
Toss Drew the match, progress that storyline, and say you have Drew versus Punk at, say, SummerSlam. Doesn't necessarily have to be for the title. I mean, that'd be cool, but it'd be a way to make two storylines kind of close on the scale because Damian Priest does kind of need the title. I feel I like Damian Priest. He's a solid B+ player, but like Jade Cargill, I'm not totally sold on him. He holds his own in everything he does, but I've never watched a Damian Priest match or seen a promo and gotten like really excited and into it. Does that make sense?
I 100% agree. I hold him in a little bit higher regard than Jade because he can go in the ring and he's super talented and he's got like the equivalent of like a Kevin Durant physique for like an NBA player where like I feel he can move agile enough, but still he's large and he's got power. I'm like, he can kind of play all of those different spots in matches, faster, ones with, quick guys, more power, more grindums. I'll split the difference here because I don't want Drew to win if it's just going to be Drew versus Punk for the title at SummerSlam. I almost think that match is better without a title, but I'll split it and I'll say if they want to somehow work in a triple threat, I'm okay with it. I know I almost feel like triple threats can sometimes be overdone because we've got one with the IC title right now, like two guys that are feuding and one guy that's kind of sort of there, and I guess that's almost Damian Priest in this. Damian Priest is the Bronson Reed, while the other two guys have the big heat. But I don't want Drew and Punk to be for the title because it's more than that.
Right.
And if it is, let it be a triple threat, and and some wonkier stuff can happen, I guess.
Yeah, totally. But on the Judgment Day note, I just had a thought on how they're booking this. So Carlito, I think that's a guy who you split him off on his own and throw him into the main roster. He's probably going to flounder, which is okay. He's, a veteran and whatever. But what I love about what they're doing right now is they have all these stables. And just because someone would go off into the main roster and flounder doesn't mean they can't be within this little stable and get a push within the stable. You know what I mean? So he's not really doing anything else, but just his part playing in the Judgment Day, he's given the ability to shine through because it's like adding this element of doubt. Like, okay, is Priest going to let up and be like, okay, you've proven yourself, you could be a part of the Judgment Day? And then Carlito maybe sneaks his way in. And then does Carlito get in the heads of Dom and Finn and JD? And he's like, we should kick Damian Priest out. And then ultimately that's how Priest gets ejected from Judgment Day, which I think we can all agree is probably going to happen if they plan on making Priest a babyface. But yeah, I just like the stable heavy landscape because it gives people a chance to shine within this little group. Whereas they probably wouldn't get a chance to shine if they were it's like big fish, small pond, but it's still within a bigger pond. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've got like two quick thoughts on that. Carlito definitely be little fingering. I don't know if that's a good word, good phrase to use. But he's Peter Baelishing out there, and yeah, when you described him as like he earns his way in through Priest and then turns against Priest with the other guys, like, oh, that'd be great. That's some good drama. But yeah, when some of the stables are kind of like the larger angles, Bloodline and Judgment Day, we've already seen this as a proven success to get mid-card guys super over and ready for, if not mid-card titles, big main title pushes. Sami Zayn with Bloodline, who, just because the top of the card was so stacked at that time, he wasn't doing too much, but he got so over. And not only for himself, but he helped the Bloodline storyline quite a bit. And R-Truth with Judgment Day as well. And now we've got a tweak to that formula. Carlito is definitely not R-Truth, and definitely is playing different angles here. So I think it's very cool how they're integrating individual wrestlers as sort of these different parts and playing with the idea of what happens when a new guy wants to join your stable.
Right.
Is he so zealous and loyal, but an idiot and you never want him in, like R-Truth? Or even Sami Zayn? Is he, pretty good, but you can't trust him, like Carlito? I think these are cool angles, and I'd love to see more stuff with like people trying to join stables, or people trying to leave stables, which we might see with Alpha Academy.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with stables in general. Like what you brought up in the past, I feel like a stable everyone was always on the same page, never any sort of arguments or dissension. Now it's like, no, these people are human. They're going to have disagreements. So just because they don't agree on the right way to do a thing doesn't mean they're going to break up. Doesn't mean you're going to have the classic wrestling heel turn or face turn where, this person has been feeling this way for this long time. Now it's bubbled up. Like that's the classic formula. But now they add a little bit of human element to it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of cool heels, I feel like Damian Priest kind of falls in that category. Drew McIntyre kind of falls in that category.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my cool heel of the year, of the decade. Gotta love Chad Gable. He's full heel, and it's awesome because he's pulling out all the stops because he wants to be IC champion. So it makes sense, but now he's really becoming a kind of a D-bag to the rest of the Alpha Academy, especially the lovable Otis. So Otis lost the match to Sami Zayn on Raw, and then Chad Gable is just there scolding him and then does the classic face shove. And I feel like there's two directions you could go. You could go Otis decides to stay with him and stay a bad guy, or you get the classic he's gonna, do the Daniel Bryan turning on Bray Wyatt thing, and to the big pop. Maybe that is a feud coming out of this, but I love Chad Gable right now. What do you think about this whole Chad Gable Alpha Academy thing?
I really like Chad Gable. I guess my thing that I'm wondering is this match coming up, the triple threat for the Intercontinental title between him, Sami Zayn, and Bronson Reed. Is Chad Gable gonna win it? If he doesn't, does he need to win this for his heel character to continue, or can he lose? And how do they still? What would you have next? Like, what is your prediction, and what happens based on your prediction?
Man, if Chad Gable loses, I think he stays the course and just becomes obsessed and starts to take it out more and more on the group until they ultimately turn on him. That's the best I got. But I feel like to warrant the heel turn and just the change of attitude, he's got to win, right?
I think so too. And so that brings up my last thought about Gable and being a cool heel. Him and the next person we'll talk about. Do you think if he wins, he'll get the pop rather than heat and booze? And is that okay for a heel character?
I think it's okay. It is a little weird. I'll give you that. The cool heel is always a weird, tiptoeing on both sides. But I think it's okay because I think a vast majority wants it, but he could tiptoe that line, like kind of when I'm not going to say it's on the same level of The Rock, but when The Rock just did his final boss thing, he would get a little bit of both. Like we all know this is a bad guy. He's going to do bad things, but it's so entertaining. We're going to pop for him. We like seeing him. So
yeah. And I guess the way The Rock always could shoot that down, or a good heel who knows, like, yes, I might be a cool heel, but I need the fans to, like, not suddenly like me, is to run down the audience, run down the fans, like he did in Utah and probably Philly. And like, we set the record for the most pieces of trailer park trash. Amazing. So I think if Gable wins and he comes out to celebrate with Alpha Academy, we finally won Chad Gable his IC title. If the crowd starts cheering or you deserve it, he needs to shut it down. He needs to use his skills, which we know he has because he's fantastic, to make sure the audience doesn't turn for him and berate them, and that, like, to stay and keep that heat. And even if it's good heat, cool heel heat, he's got to keep it.
Right. So cool heel, another cool heel, Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
What do you think about Liv? I think it's going to be her versus, well, I don't think it's going to be her versus Becky at King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring in Saudi. Do you see Liv walking out as the WWE Women's Champion?
Everything initially tells me yes, that both Chad Gable and Liv Morgan win. Oh man, it's so interesting with this being in Saudi though. I think there are some crowds that go along more with the kayfabe storylines, and they're like smart/mark crowds. Well, there are smart crowds and there are mark crowds, and this is more of a crowd that, like, they're gonna want Becky to win. They're gonna want Sami Zayn to win. So maybe they booked this smartly, where even though we have cool heels, they actually still will get booed here. And this might be the one place where they would get booed. I think Liv Morgan should win. I would have picked her to, but for some reason, something tells me they will not have her win. I don't know why, but I think Becky's gonna retain. But it's almost a total coin flip for me.
Right. I'm a big fan of Liv. I am a big fan of heel Liv. I like her with a little bit of edge, not Adam Copeland. But I do see Liv coming out as the winner here. And I would love if they just give her the ball, let her run with it, and maybe she skyrockets in popularity with this new character. And once Rhea comes back, maybe it actually is a pretty close battle with the fans. Maybe I think Rhea's going to come back a babyface.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Maybe Liv gets enough heat and is a cool enough heel to rival Rhea. But one thing I did want to say is, as much as I love Liv and Becky, I do give the worst segment of the week to what we're looking at on our screen. It was a backstage segment where Liv came up to Lyra and just basically kind of congratulated her in her heel way or wished her luck. And she said, like, say hi to Becky for me. And then Lyra was like, why don't you tell her yourself? And then Becky was standing behind her. Zoinks! And then Becky punched her in the face, but it was like the weakest punch to the face I've ever seen. And so now I want Liv to definitely dethrone Becky for that.
There you go. For that weak punch. Yeah. I know you're a big fan of Charlotte, but I know that I think crowds, when Charlotte would come back after she kind of was already established at the top and had some title reigns, and they were trying to get new people over, would come back. I felt like people were like, we like Charlotte and respect everything she did, but we need to find a feud for her that's non-title related sometimes. I feel, for me, Becky's is kind of in that level now. Like, we talked about this. I think they should have went with Nia winning the Battle Royal, especially if there's a way to get Jade Cargill over with everyone. Having Nia be somebody that we don't want as champion, a true heel, not cool heel, true heel. That's how you get the person you need over to beat them. So right. I just feel like Becky doesn't need to be there. And of course, this all happened because Rhea did get actually injured, and this may not have been in any of the plans. So they're audibling and stuff. But I would like to see, and this may speak more towards WWE's booking women's angles in general. There's not a lot of non-title ones, unfortunately. And I think they need to build a little bit more so that people like Becky, people like Charlotte don't always have to be in the title, and not let new female superstars ascend and get to their same level.
Right. I agree for sure. So wanted to take a quick pause and we got a handful of people on with us live. I'm sure, another handful will watch after the fact to our weekly recaps, but thank you for tuning in. We're here at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Saturday to give our recap for wrestling. But I wanted to also take a quick break to acknowledge what I like to call the comment of the week. So we post videos every day and we get a decent amount of comments, and sometimes they're snarky. Sometimes they're, classic YouTube comments. So I like to acknowledge those. Sure. But I did want to acknowledge this gentleman. So we've been doing the Two Truths in a Lie videos and getting a ton of participation on those. So thank you to everyone who participates in those. But this guy right here, Colton Zimmerman, I wanted to give a shout out because he's batting 1,000 with every one of these Two Truths in a Lie videos. He's nailed the right answer. And not only that, he typically gives a little bit more of an explanation. So right here, it was the John Cena Two Truths in a Lie and the lie was his first title win was against The Rock. And so not only did Colton say that's the lie, he gave us a whole rundown of who actually won or who he actually beat. So shout out Colton Zimmerman.
Dang, it's like Stump the Schwab, that show on ESPN that did not last very long. This guy's your trivia champ. We're gonna have to follow him up and see if we can ever stump him.
Right.
But, all right. Challenge is laid down. We'll see if we can ever stump Colton with Two Truths and a Lie here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been getting some good feedback too. So those we'll keep doing those because people seem to like those. It's fun. So
flex that brain.
Yes. Okay. So
who's that?
That is the guy who fights Ace Ventura in Ace Ventura 2.
Oh, I thought it was a wrestler.
Oh, well, that too. So I've never seen this fella in Tama Tonga in the same place at once. So I think I'm watching SmackDown yesterday, and they're doing a backstage bloodline segment, and Solo is doing his typical, he's got his gloves on, he's a mob boss type thing. And they have Tama Tonga just kind of pacing back and forth, making the exact same sounds this guy made from the movie.
Just like seething.
Yes, seething. So I was like, Lord help LA Knight, who's going to have to face this guy tonight in the King of the Ring tournament. But I wanted to take a quick pause. Well, we want to take a quick pause. Talk about just the bloodline in general. Matt, do you like the current direction of the bloodline? What do you like? What do you dislike? Where do you see it going? What are just your thoughts?
I'm gonna be the poo-poo. I usually am the poo-poo.
Okay.
I don't dislike it, but obviously from what we've had, it's cooled off because we've lost not only Roman, who's somewhere just, recalibrating everything and gonna come back and murder everyone, but we've also lost The Rock and the Usos. One's doing a solo thing, one's exiled from the island of relevancy by Solo and is like, I guess I'm just gonna quit wrestling, but he'll obviously come back. But yeah, I personally feel like I like Solo, but I think it's introduced like it would be not too far of a stretch to say the goal is to have this Solo-led new bloodline have to feud with the Usos coming back and maybe even Roman rejoining them and having the original bloodline versus this new bloodline that's taken their idea and mutated it to something it never was supposed to be. But I think the issue with that is that's going to have to happen sooner rather than later. But I think it's going to be too soon before these new players, Tama Tonga and the supposedly called up Jacob Fatu and the other new guy that can't even keep it straight. Tonga Loa, my God. I just don't think there's enough like give a darn for fans behind them yet, because like they've both been on the program for a couple weeks now. Like Solo's got it, but I think they're gonna have to do a lot of work in a short time, or they're really playing a long game for this. So I think it's definitely the Bloodline is not your top segment right now on the shows. It's not the thing you're looking forward to, which isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means that other things maybe have surpassed it, or it's in a little bit of a cooling phase, so that it can reestablish itself when some of the big players come back. So I'm fine with it, but I'm just like, I think they're gonna have to do something here. They're gonna have to let these guys make bigger names for themselves. How do you feel about it?
I feel similar, but for me, all I need this to do is just to keep it afloat, because I think it's going to be a slow burn. I really don't need it to be what it used to be. I think as long as they remain a threat and remain a heel faction and do heel things and get featured every week, I think it's ultimately going to lead to something really good. And that's probably Bloodline Civil War Part 2. Yeah. I think they did Bloodline Civil War Part 1, but when they did Roman and Solo versus Jimmy and Jay, but I think Bloodline Civil War Part 2 is going to be bigger. It's probably going to lead to Rock and the Usos and maybe Sammy if they want to pull out.
That'd be great.
Cool. And then do those guys versus this group. And then if you want to reveal that Rock has been acting as tribal chief to Solo this whole time, I think that's pretty cool. That's a way to get a Rock versus Roman kind of preview before their inevitable big one-on-one match. I do like the little seeds they've been planting with, I think once or twice they had this faction walk kind of in the same vicinity as Jay, and they did like Paul Heyman looking at Jay, looking at each other, kind of like this is getting out of control. We're gonna need some, help. And so I think if they go that direction, it's gonna be cool. But I don't expect it to be as big as it was in years past.
Sure, yeah.
So
no, I mean your plan and description of what you would like to see happen, I think got me excited. I think that'd be really cool. So yeah, I think if as long as it can cool off here, but they've got to make sure that these guys, Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga are going to, by the time they pull the trigger on this, most likely Civil War, feud, that those guys are going to be considered on the same level here as like the Usos, and that's gonna be tough to do because Usos and Roman have been around for a long time. And to make these credible threats to those guys, in a few months is going to be really tricky.
Very true. Very true. You got to keep having them take down legends or legend killers. Speaking of,
there you go.
We had the sweatiest, sloppiest, snottiest, drooliest promo from Randy Orton, who did advance. So to move forward, we don't want to let people look at that for too long. But the King of the Ring, which we'll end on, the King of the Ring tournament is taking shape. It's also down to 4 superstars.
Final 4.
3 of which I can't see losing. So it's super interesting for me. And on the Raw side, which we'll start with, we had Gunther defeating Kofi Kingston in a great match. We had Jay defeating Ilya Dragunov in another great match. So we're looking at Gunther versus Jay Uso in the semifinals.
Yeah. So. I didn't know I can give my thoughts on it, but it was interesting because you said 3 of them I don't think I can see losing. I'm wondering the one you do think who could lose is. And I would have said this is the guy who's least likely to, but after we talked about the bloodline and needing to get new bloodline credibility, I'm ready to say that Tonga Loa wins this. So we'll jump there and get there, but that's my prediction right now, actually.
Okay.
I think Gunther will beat Jay. I think it'll be a good match, but I think Jay comes up short again, and I think Gunther wins and goes to the finals. You can't have him out in the semifinals right now.
Okay. Do we get a clean Gunther win? And a hard fought, very game Jey Uso.
Yes, because if I'm going with my prediction, and Tonga wins, That's not going to be clean if he wins over Gunther or Jay, probably. So Jay Gunther has to be clean.
Okay. Yep, I hear you. I think Jey Uso versus Tama Tonga would be the most interesting finals, but I think Gunther, I agree. I think Gunther beats Jay in a semi-clean win. I do think we get some interference.
Maybe from Imperium.
Yeah,
rather than Bloodline.
Exactly.
Kaiser.
So yeah, and that will give Jay a, it'll keep him strong. Jay's gonna always be strong. Whether or not you think he should be a main event single star, blah blah blah. I think he's doing fine. But I do see Gunther advancing for the Raw side.
Yeah.
And when I said 3 out of 4, I think Randy Orton is the only guy I see losing.
Okay.
Who can take a loss, but also they keep mentioning that he hasn't lost since his return. So if his first loss is against Tama Tonga in the semifinals and you do some sort of interference again, that waters it down a little bit. But I think if we get Gunther versus Tama Tonga in the finals, that is a super interesting main event. And I agree. I think if you want to keep the bloodline strong, you cannot have Tama Tonga, aka the Ace Ventura villain, lose, right?
Yeah, you almost, it again pulls everything centering around bloodline, which I think is what they still want to do. Like, they want to establish that despite all the other stables, this is the strongest group, and when they want to put their hand into something, they take whatever they want. And so they'll take from Jay, who's former bloodline. They can take from Randy, who's a legend and an all-timer, and nobody would ever, try to cheat over. And they'll take from Gunther, who even maybe we get some Imperium involvement somehow. I know they're on separate shows, so it's never going to have to cross too much. But I just think it would be fascinating. The more people they screw over and the more enemies they make, even with like partial heels or cool heels that like we respect, like Gunther, that's going to build them up and make them stronger. So, it's the riskiest pick out of all of them. But yeah, I might say some by hook or by crook, Bloodline gets Tama Tonga the King of the Ring title.
Yeah, I could see it happening. And if he loses, Solo is known to take out and exert some kind of punishment over any bloodline members that lose. So do you have Tama Tonga take a punishment if he loses? And if he beats Gunther, who will say whether it's Gunther or Jay, when Gunther takes a loss, if he takes a loss, it's hard for me to visualize that because the guy went 2 years without taking a loss at all. So it's very interesting. And again, I'll say it again, that I think it's great that they're doing a lot of these finishes without too much shenanigans.
Yeah. So would you predict Tonga or going Gunther or Jay?
God, man. Final prediction, Tama Tonga.
Oh man, I wanted you to say Gunther because, like, let's assume that we're going too deep down this bloodline rabbit hole, and probably the person we thought was the favorite when this whole thing got announced and he announced himself, Gunther's the favorite,
right?
Like from the very beginning and even until now, he's been kind of the focal point of King of the Ring. So if he does win, where does that put him? What is his next step after becoming King of the Ring? Is he going to be facing down a main title, or how will they bide his time if there's still title storylines between, Drew and Damian, and then maybe even CM Punk? Like, he's not going to be able to jump to that main title for a couple months.
Yeah. Well, it's a good problem to have. You're saying, what do they do with Gunther if he wins?
Yeah. What would you do with him in the meantime?
Man,
at least through Clash at the Castle, right?
Yeah, I say you gotta pair him up with someone, not pair him up, but in a feud, obviously, with someone like a Sheamus or someone like a
Bangers.
AJ Styles. Yeah, someone who's a veteran that can take a loss at any point. That's always going to be a credible challenger. So have Gunther go through some of those guys, maybe that he didn't face during his IC title reign. Let him keep racking up those wins because he's going to get that world title opportunity soon. And when he does, it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I think that's why I wanted to ask, because as we're talking about, it's like he really does. If he wins, he really doesn't have a lot. We have to just kind of like put him in a holding pattern. So that almost makes me think, yeah, Tonga might be the right choice. Yeah. Because Gunther winning this doesn't help him in the short term.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going down the speculation trail here.
Oh, yeah, always.
If Gunther loses via some sort of interference, does Gunther then go semi-babyface and go after the bloodline?
Yeah.
Is he? I'm trying. Well, Gunther's obviously Raw, so maybe not. But yeah, it could go any direction. I would love to see a tweener Gunther, a cool heel Gunther go against a stable like that. That'd be awesome. Gunther,
right?
You know, when I say about like Jade Cargill or Damian Priest, like I'm not quite sold on them. I also wasn't sold on Gunther until several months into his reign. So I don't say it as a bad thing. I just think that a lot of people, you know, it takes time. It takes time, at least for me, to come around and get like fully on the bandwagon.
Yeah, and what would you say was like the moment when you bought into Gunther? What was it that happened? Was there a match? Was there a promo? Was it a build up, an accumulation of a lot of things?
I think it was an accumulation of a lot of things. I loved his presentation. I loved his mic work. It's simple, it's straightforward. It's just, I love, the mat is sacred. And then I think it was just an accumulation of match after match. Like at first you see him chop a guy, and just go strong style. It's just like, all right. But then you see it again and again and again. And it's just, I don't know. I think it was an accumulation.
Nice. Right,
yeah. So
cool.
All right, my dude. Well, that just about does it for the 6 Wins Weekly Recap. That was our 6 or so favorite things of the week.
Yeah.
And
we bounce around.
Yeah. So we'll be cranking out these top 6 videos here pretty soon. Be on the lookout for top 6 heels and top 6 baby faces.
You gotta watch out. I don't know Chris's feelings on heels. I don't know my feelings on baby faces. We may have picked we maybe should have swapped it, but this will be interesting. No, I'm gonna pick. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do my own personal favorites or kind of like try to be objective. Who I think the top 6 baby faces based on what I see. I think I'll go with that first because my top 6 favorite faces. I'd probably have the Hurricane on there as one for myself. One. I love the Hurricane. So yeah, and he can't. But faces is tough. I was coming up with a short list. That's a tough one. I don't know how your heel list is coming, but
yeah. I think I got about half. I got about half cemented, but we're going to be shooting those pretty soon and putting them up on the channel. But
yeah,
as far as the recap, we appreciate everyone that hopped in. And if you watch after the fact, we're here at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Saturday to give our thoughts on the week in wrestling.
And we're always lurking our own videos. So if you want to comment at any time, I have a shot collar that lets me know when anybody has commented on anything I've ever posted. Just sets me off. gets me rock hard.
Yeah, I got one too, but it's.
Oh yeah, you wear it that. Yeah. I was told that's an option, but mine's too large to strap around and hang on there. So
the big valve.